All right, let's get the show on the road. Sam.
All right, well, I'm assuming based on the fact that most of you are in cosplay, you know what Homestuck is. But just in case, the Gigapod has been a little rough on all of us, let's, do a little reminder. So basically, it started out as MSPA's fourth installment. Andrew Hussey had been working on webcomics and all that, and it already had a very small fan base back then. It just sort of exploded. And, basically, yeah. So yeah, you probably know Homestuck is. You can just roll right into the fandom aspect of it.
There's some trolls.
We're kind of weird and random, but difficulties. None of us know how to use PowerPoint.
Hit the space bar.
The Homestuck fandom, it started out with a pretty good fan base for previous MSP adventures. And in the beginning, it was very fan-driven. The fans chose everything. They named the characters, they decided what John was going to do. They were the comic. So, like anything, it kind of gained fans, but not too many. It was still relatively obscure. You'd hear whispers of Homestuck at conventions, but it was nothing like this. There were just maybe 2 John cosplayers, and that was about it. And stayed like that for the first 4 acts, but then we hit Act 5. The trolls changed everything. Suddenly, everyone was interested in Homestuck because there were great people, and this made it so much better for some reason. Personally, I think it was probably because there was a lot more character dynamic than there was before. There were a lot more interactions. Also, in Act 5, the story took a more serious turn. Before Homestuck, it was kind of dumb.
It was.
Just a little dumb webcomic. Made a lot of dumb jokes. Nobody really knew what to think of it. But then Act 5 hit, and suddenly the story got really serious. It was amazing. So then, Act 5 continued. I can't read my own PowerPoint.
Alright, so as Lauren was saying, Act 5 brought the trolls, Act 5 brought new fans. Those new fans got to experience new character dynamics, and they also got to experience troll shipping, which changed not only the Homestuck fandom, but actually pretty much every fandom. If you're into anything other than Homestuck, you're like, this is my pale OTP, and it's really funny. So basically, new characters, new plot, everything just sort of became more serious and more in-depth, and people sort of took it a little more seriously as well. And the hiatus happened right before Cascade. I'm sure many of you here were in the fandom then. That was probably a very hard time, and I apologize. But it also opened up a huge window for people to create brand new things for the fandom. It was an absolute explosion of creativity in the fandom, and it also drew in a bunch more people because, there's nothing updating, so you don't have to worry about spoilers. And we doubled, I think, in size probably at that point in time.
And then, Cascade! I have never seen anything quite like Cascade. It was incredible. My Tumblr dashboard was nothing but Homestuck. I couldn't go on Tumblr for 3 days because it was nothing but Cascade for spoilers, and we crashed Newgrounds, so I couldn't even watch The Flash. It was incredible, and suddenly we had all these new fans because nobody would stop talking about Homestuck. So everyone just kind of gave in and was like, well, everyone's so excited about this thing, maybe we should check it out. Cascade was really impressive because it was also a massive collaboration with fans. Most of the art in The Flash was done by fans, the music was all done by fans. I just think it really showed the fandom, how close it can be and how tightly knit it is woven into the comic. And it was just incredible. I've never seen anything like that. And Cascade was really for me when I decided that the Homestuck fandom, maybe all those stories about them, maybe they weren't that true.
They're totally true.
To an extent, mostly.
All of them.
I'm trying to remain neutral here.
All of them are true.
But as I was saying, it was a huge shift in the fandom. We saw all this new artwork, all these new cosplays. I think that Cascade was a really good time for people to start getting into cosplay. We had all these God tier outfits, and then people wanted to cosplay the kids. It was just it was a gateway. It was like, suddenly there were all these AUs where characters that died were living, and there was fanfics abroad, there was a bunch of new music. It was incredible. So, end of Act 5. It was quite a big shift in the fandom. In fact, I'd say probably the whole fan base changed.
Hey, that's my picture.
Fandom secret, I'm not in that picture. But yeah, so if you recognize this picture, it was taken at Animathon in 2013.
Yeah, last year.
Animathon 2013. And this is, of course, in Edmonton, and there's probably a few familiar faces. Now, this is just one example of the incredibly huge impact that Homestuck has had on people. Most of the people probably didn't know what Homestuck was like 6 months before this convention. And as you can see, that's just some of the people who are at that con. Most cons with any attendance have a handful of Homestuck cosplayers, and everyone just sort of bands together and do things like photo shoots and stuff. Yeah, so with that sort of convention presence, we, and as in Lauren and I, and also other people around North America and the world, decided that maybe it would be cool to organize some actual groups to make events happen for these people, to bring together Homestucks from around the area they lived in, and actually turn a fan base into a community, which has so far been an absolutely amazing experience, and I hope everyone can agree, and if they haven't experienced it yet, will soon. Yeah, and these groups also brought in a lot more people to the fandom because people would say, hey, come to my Homestuck meetup, get into the comic.
Homestuck groups are really incredible to me because we created like this entire subculture almost. I've never there've been like fan clubs and stuff like that, but never has like each city had like a unique fandom. Like you don't see like Naruto groups in every city, and there's no and it's amazing just how many Homestuck fans there are. Like, I'd say at the average of a Homestuck group, there's probably at least 200 people. Like, Calgary Stuck has over 300, Edmonton Stuck is like 150. And Vancouver Stuck, last time I checked, they had almost 900 members. And that's just like in Western Canada. That's amazing to me. It's just incredible what it's done and how it's brought people together.
Of course, with that many people all in one place, you are going to run into a few problems, and I'm sure the fandom's reputation has preceded itself. Essentially, the fandom is known, if you know in one word Homestuck, and you're not fond of it, it's because people throw buckets. It's because people run up to you and start twerking on you. It's because people get paint everywhere, and all of these horrible sounding things that come out of this terrible fandom full of hooligans. But I'm sure you guys know that all not to be true all of the time. And in fact, it's really a small percentage of things. Okay.
The truth is, you hear all these negative stories, and the Homestuck fandom is so vilified because someone bathed in Sharpies because they wanted to dye their string gray, or they were spitting into buckets because I don't know. I never figured that out. They were graying up in hotels and leaving the entire hotel covered in bed dye because they couldn't be bothered to cleaning up. But the truth is, you hear those stories because they're so extreme, and that's why they're so widespread. Because you're like, holy crap, who does that? Like, obviously, in every fandom, there are good fans and bad fans, and the bad fans are going to stand out more, especially in Homestuck, where the bad fans tend to be the worst of fans. But the bad fans are such a small portion of the actual fandom that I just don't think the reputation that the Homestuck fandom has is deserved, especially as the comic has gone on. Going on from that, the Homestuck fandom, I think, is really great. Obviously, I might be a little biased here, but I've had way more positive experiences in the Homestuck fandom than negative ones. I hope that's true for you guys as well. Homestucks, they're really good at banding together, like contributing to the comic, but beyond that, I've never seen a fan group contribute more to charity than Homestucks. They do Cantown. Cantown is basically universal for Homestuck fans. It ranges from hundreds of donations to the food bank to just stacking a bunch of empty pop cans and recycling them. But either way, they're giving back. Homestuck fans will go and clean up. I've heard stories of Homestuck fans going to completely unrelated events. I believe that was in Edmonton, where they just went to a completely unrelated event and picked up trash for people. And I wish they would do that here. And volunteering, I've heard stories of groups hosting meets where they go volunteer for a charity and they go help out at like a soup kitchen or something. And I just think that's really great. Like, I don't even know how much money has been raised for various charities. I know Homestuck alone, we've done like $1,500 for various local charities, and that's just us. So think of what the fandom as a whole has done. It's so awesome. And like I was saying before, the fandom are so directly involved in the comic. Not so much now that there's like 300 million fans, but there's still art. They still produce art for flashes, music for the comic. There's prints from Homestuck artists in the What Pumpkin store, stuff like that. And I think that's really great. I haven't seen that in any other fandom. And as well, Homestuck, they tend to be really good about actually sourcing their artists, unlike some other fandoms, not naming any.
All the other fandoms.
And just getting a little cheesy here, but so many people have found like so many friends and like significant others and what have you, just because we all decided to read some stupid webcomic. I think that's incredible. Just we read this dumb webcomic about some kids. I don't even know what Homestuck is about. And then there's all these friends. Like, I have a bunch of friends. I can see them in this room. That's not even all of them. And people have like found like relationship partners, and there's just been so many friendships. So much good has come out of Homestuck. But I just think as a whole, the fandom is really great, and I will defend it until I die.
Good job.
Yeah, we do have paradox space.
Hey, my God's here.
She doesn't want to kiss you because you're a desperate and unpleasant person.
Critical Whale is the best character in Homestuck.
Excuse me, but...
Yes.
One of my favorite things about Homestuck is walking into a con like this and seeing maybe the odd cosplayer, seeing a date or a job somewhere, and then you walk into an area and it's a sea of horns and gray, and you're just like, this is my home. And I've made several new friends here just because we were waiting in line for our Homestuck panel, so it's all of us.
Yes.
Ma'am, I just want to talk about my Homestuck fandoms. When You're quiet.
I'm not quiet.
Really quiet, Brody.
When I first joined the Homestuck fandom, I didn't have like really anybody I could hang out with, and coming to Calgary Stuck and meeting Lauren actually, and she was one of the first Homestuck cosplayers I met, and I thought she was so fucking cool. And then I actually spent like we started talking on Tumblr, and then I realized that she was also a big nerd, but shut up, Lauren. And then meeting the rest of Calgary Stuck and all of Edmonton Stuck has just been like the most rewarding experience of like my entire lifetime. Because okay, Molly. I've never met a more talented group of individuals who, even when Homestuck will end, and we all know it will, that we're all still going to be Calgary Stucks. And I think that's really amazing, actually, that we've created this family that isn't just a Homestuck anymore. So yeah, that's my positive Homestuck
I'm gonna
experience.
film from over here now.
I'd like to point out what Homestuck and conventions and the whole experience can do for your friendships, because if I was able to travel back in time and meet myself 5 years ago and say, Molly, one day you're going to have a friend you were going to paint her abs gray for 3 hours before Otafest, I would say, what are you talking about? But I did it, and I have done, it's helped with a lot of stuff. Sorry. It's helped with a lot of stuff, like, I taught myself to sew because of Homestuck. I worked on my photography, I worked on my, basically everything, my art, it's good to have a whole community of people who can appreciate that with you.
That reminds me, we didn't talk about cosplay and what Homestuck has done for cosplay. Homestuck is like, I think it's a great intro to cosplay, especially just like the kids and their basic outfits. And for a lot of people, it has been a basic intro to cosplay. And you know, cosplaying trolls, it teaches you a lot about makeup if you do it properly. Ceiling makeup, you think it might not. Yes, exactly. Ceiling makeup, you think it might not be relevant, it's always relevant. Not just in Homestuck, like in general. You go on, you do other cosplays, and you take these techniques that you learned from Homestuck, and you apply them to your future cosplays, and then everything is great. Yes.
Speaking of cosplays, I spent basically every day for the past week, sitting in my basement sewing a dress for a completely not even Homestuck related cosplay, but that would not have happened if I had not done Homestuck. And it's just really awesome because when I was a kid, I used to do crafts and sew a lot, and then I kind of stopped doing that and I just kind of phased out of it. But now because of Homestuck and being brought back into cosplay, it's fantastic because I can use all these things and do all this stuff that I used to love doing when I was 12 years old, and now I can do it again. It's like, wow, this is fantastic. So
I would like to thank Homestuck Cosplay for allowing me not to wear pants in public.
I actually just recently moved here, and before I moved, I was really afraid that I wasn't going to be able to make any friends. And then my friend told me about Calgary Stuck, and because of Calgary Stuck, I actually had a lot of friends waiting for me here.
I love Calgary Stuck. Yes.
And so cosplay, and now I can make this metal arm in, how long was it, 3 hours? Yeah.
Wow. Anyone else? Yes.
People are not going to get into all the friends I made because of Homestuck. But one of my favorite memories is we were talking about Cascade, and I remember I woke up at 5 in the morning and got on Skype because someone had a feeling that it was going to come out that day. And then it did. And I remember before it even went up on Newgrounds, there was just a download link on the website, and you had to download the Flash itself. So I have it saved on my computer, and then I just remember waking up super early in the morning to watch this stupid Flash with this super just because my friends wanted me to. But the whole excitement of it and just getting to see everything develop after is
Yeah. Okay, so I got into Homestuck 2 years ago. Oh, sure.
So I got into Homestuck 2 years ago, and my first con I went to cosplay was at Taste of Anime-Con, and I went and I was Carcat, and I knew nobody, and I had one friend, and she wasn't cosplaying Homestuck, and she ended up leaving halfway through, so I knew nobody, so I was just kind of sitting there on my own, and then I ended up hanging out with a few other people, and I think that definitely introduced me to the fandom. I was like, oh yeah, these people are really rad. So it was this great way to just kind of meet everybody.
can I just start by saying I cleaned my hotel room this morning? The other day I was just dressed up in my clothes and I wasn't wearing any makeup. I was just human stuff and I was seen yesterday. And I was walking out through the lobby and this guy, he was the coach of a basketball team, and he bowed to me. Because I was like,
Oh yeah.
and he just bowed. I'm like, thank you.
That's a pretty positive experience, I'd say.
I don't know if he's into Homestuck or anything. He might be. Maybe that's why he might have just bowed because he felt like doing it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it works. But yeah, I actually have also a story, bringing it more local to me and stuff, and probably I'd say this is similar for Calgary stuff too. We hosted our first dance not too long ago for the Edmonton Stuff community, and we got so incredibly much positive feedback from people who were talking, mostly people honestly, who were still in school or just newly out of school, talking they had in going to a conventional high school dance prom for a couple of hours with adults wandering around everywhere, no gray paint. I mean, like, why would you even bother? Yeah. But things like Homestuck dances and picnics and sort of ordinary activities you would do with your family or your school, they kind of take on a completely new meaning and a new life. When you're doing it with a group of people, you may or may not.
Don't make me think of stuff to say.
How bad do you think the ending would have to be to make everybody hate Homestuck forever?
Well, I think it would probably have to do with Gamzee surviving and everyone else dying. Yes, everyone dies, but if everyone dies and Gamzee, Gamzee doesn't.
Even Gamzee dies, then it would be okay.
Gamzee dies, it's okay.
If Gamzee dies, I will be satisfied.
I think more Gamzee dies, I will cry.
Ban Gamzee 2014.
Personally, I only recently got into Homestuck because of this person right here. And she was like, you have to read Homestuck, do this, do that. And it got so annoying, and I'm like, fine. So I started reading Homestuck, and I was like, wow, this is actually really awesome. And I'm really excited to see what Homestuck will be like in a few years from now, because, there's more acts coming out and stuff. And I'm really excited to see it, and it's like, oh my gosh, and Homestuck has inspired me to cosplay more. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we're going to be Barcast dancing, and I'm really excited to do that. So.
Okay, so one of my favorite things about Homestuck is that, especially like the community, just going to the conventions and like the fact that Homestuck panels do exist, and like being on the Homestuck panel is actually really, really fun because you meet a lot of new people you may have not met before. Like maybe you'll say hi to them in the hallway and be like, hey, what's up? But you don't really get to talk to them. But being on the Homestuck panel, it like helped me like find a lot of new friends who are like I can now be like see at the con and be like, hey, what's up? And like I find a lot more friends that way, and I'm really glad that a lot of people have started taking to making their own panels and finding like fun creative ways to like be active in like the anime community, but also like in our own community as well, and like getting ourselves out there. And just waking up at 6 a.m. to paint yourself gray is a really cool experience. Also, the one thing I want for the end of Homestuck is that one day I just want to be on the Google, when you go to Google, I just wanted to be like the spirograph for the little house one day that Homestuck gets that popular.
Sappy on you guys for a minute here, because I grew up with no friends in a very, very small town in the middle of nowhere, Texan, Canada. So I got into Homestuck through my best friend, who was my only friend last year, and I didn't really know what to expect when I came to a convention, because that was my first convention, and I cosplayed as Spade Slick. So of course, the guy no one's gonna recognize at a convention. And when I got there, I met the largest group of people painted gray I've ever seen in my entire life. And at first I was really intimidated, because I thought, oh, you're all gray and you're really loud and I don't know what to think. But then I kind of got into the hype with everyone else, and I made more friends than I've ever had in my entire life in one convention. And I'm still really good friends with these people. And it got to the point where I've almost developed a family out of these people, where I feel close enough to some of these people that they are closer to me than relatives I have. And I think that's just an amazing experience to be able to make friends like that. Like, what other place can you go to meet a large collective group of people who all have the same interests and all love each other a lot? So I want to thank everyone in the room for just being awesome and being my friend. Good Lord.
I can't be banned from Homestuck.
Yeah.
Alright, so really my first experience in Homestuck, I was at Taste of Anime Dawn a couple of years ago. This is where I met this one, this is Carcat, all red, awesome. And I wasn't even dressed as Homestuck. I had just caught up on reading Homestuck, and I was dressed as John Watson, like my one friend there is Sherlock. And we basically got abducted by the Homestucks. It was the best experience of my life. Everyone was so friendly, and they even abducted me into the photo shoot because they're like, "You're a John too, come on." I'm like, "Okay." And that just got me into the Homestuck community, and then we found out Calgary Stuck was a thing. And like me and my friend, when I still lived up in Edmonton, we would road trip down for every Calgary Stuck event. We took so much time out of our schedules to come down and hang out with these losers here. How great they were. And just Calgary Stuck is the best experience I've ever had.
I'm gonna cry before more stuff.
I'm not gonna cry. Christ's name. Oh.
I'm not homosexual.
I just want to say, like, we're talking about people that we've met in, like, I don't know, conventions and stuff, but there's so much more to that too. Like, even just being on Tumblr, like, I didn't even really know Brody. I knew Brody through this kid right here, and she invited me to, like, be part of the Trickster panel, or the Trickster group, and because of that, it was, like, amazing. It was, like, this whole introduction into this whole group of friends and this whole new cosplaying thing, but I made friends, like, all over the world and stuff from that, and I even met my boyfriend because of that Trickster photo, so, yeah.
Oh my God, that's so
I just wanted to say, like, it's really great just how many people you meet, even just through conventions and then, like, the internet, and it just keeps building and building and building, and there's, like, a whole world out there of people who are just the same thing as you, and it's really great, and I never met half these people if it hadn't been for Calgary Stuff and that photo, and this kid, and that kid, and everybody here, and it's a lot of emotions. I want to make a pie and whatever kid did.
And I just wanted to add to what Lizzie said. Like, I'm friends with Molly, and so Molly's friends with, like, Lauren and Brody and all these people, and it's like, I see them interact, like, on Tumblr and stuff, and, like, all these things. I'm like, these are all these people that are friends with my friend. And then because of Calgary Stuff, I got to be friends with those people, and now they're all my friends too, and it's really awesome because they're all the best people ever.
I was like cosplay solace with me, and she was like, okay. And it happened.
Let's play Pass the Mic.
Sorry. Okay, show of hands. Who has ever RP'd Homestuck? Raise your hands. Yeah. Who has ever made a fan troll or a fan kit? Have you ever been like inspired to make your own comic or write your own story? Do you write a bit? Yeah. You guys are awesome. I love how Homestuck inspires people to be creative. You know, make the story, expand, create worlds that may not be canon, but it's still really fucking cool. Yes, yeah, it's really cool. So my favorite thing is that people are allowed to expand their own worlds and create new things and even have an opportunity to get into it, like those two fan trolls who got into the comic for like one panel and then died. That was cool. Yeah, that's my thing.
Expanding on the creativity that Homestuck has inspired for a minute, just the English major in me is really excited as to how Homestuck has made people really like sit down and analyze a piece of literature. I think that's great. Like, people have come up with all these theories, they're analyzing, like, some of those theories have been correct, which is really impressive. And it just inspires people to like think like critically about a piece of literature, even though they don't really realize that they're doing it. Thank you. And I think that's just great that Homestuck is kind of teaching critical thinking without teaching critical thinking.
It's not very thinking. You don't have to think very much.
School is cool.
Okay, so I was introduced to Homestuck about 2 years ago, was it? By her. And I met
comic is done, we all know certain things in fandom, or certain artists that we've all really enjoyed, and I think that's really incredible, just how much the fandom has meant to the comic, and how we're kind of our own thing now. Like, there's the comic, there's also the fandom, which I think is really cool. It's its own identity. That's awesome. Yay.
Cosplaying Homestuck taught me that I am a fantastic cross-dresser.
So it's not really an emotional, like, full sex story or anything, but one of my best friends, Melly, who most people know, I got her to Homestuck after Taste of Anime a couple years ago, after she got abducted with me. And I was like, no, you gotta read it, it's really good. And so she came to me and she's like, I finished the first act, but I don't really know what's going on. And I'm just like, oh, like, what don't you know? And she's like, well, there's no dialogue. And I'm like, did you open the pestle? And she's like, those open? I did that! For the entire act, not knowing what was going on at all. And then she had to go back and reread it. But it was pretty much the funniest experience I've had.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of my amazing about Homestuck cosplay is you can't really buy it or get some stuff at conventions and just cosplay. What you have to do is normally it's like man labor and you can like see how well people's creative skills are. You could possibly get it on Etsy, but it's not like something so mainstream that you get it like those. We all know those Naruto latex cosplay.
Yes.
You can't really do that. So whenever you look at a good Homestuck cosplay, you know someone has made that by hand. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah, two years down the road, we're gonna have like people. Oh, hey, buy our Homestuck shit. We're all gonna have we
already do, but
Okay, I got into Homestuck last summer through actually that Italian fandom because I kept seeing weird crossovers and I'm like, what is this? What is a Moro? Who is that? What is Homestuck? And I started reading it and this idiot told me, I am embarrassed that you are reading Homestuck. And like earlier this year she called me up and said, Mary, can you help me pick myself for it?
Sounds about right.
Okay, so at AnimeCon last year, 2013, at the Friday night dance, I was dancing and I was dancing way too hard, and I twisted my knee. So I couldn't walk. So I had a big group of Homestucks help carry me out of the dance and to my mom's car. And then the day after, I was got here Dave, and I should have stayed home, but I didn't. So I was there hobbling around on crutches. So and if anyone would see me in the hall at the convention center, they would see oh man, that person's having trouble. They would come help me and be like, oh hey, do you need help carrying your cake? Because it was 2 meters long. And it was probably really great too, because I don't know.
Again, with how Homestuck's helped, I'm not even gonna lie, a year ago from now, a year ago, I was actually so scared of the Homestucks, because in Advent, they called me together, there were 100 of them in the vlog, and I was like, I'm new to the Homestucks. And then my friend was like, hey, you should actually read this, because fandom isn't that bad. And I was like, okay. So I did it. I got up in a few months, 3 months, and I was I know what's going on and stuff. And it wasn't even a slow thing for me to get into it. It was so sudden. And then at Taste of Anime in February, I was Kanaya, and it was my first time to cosplay. And when I was there, I got separated from the group of friends I was with, and I ended up having a panic attack because they had my medication. And a tabros came up to me and asked me if I was okay, and they got a whole group of people, and they walked around me for an hour, just taking their own time to help me find my friends artistic and wanted to do everything. And I ended up actually doing some fan art, and now my mom wants me to draw my whole family as Homestuck characters staying on the wall.
Yeah. Well, like, someone mentioned roleplay and it sparked a memory for me. And there's literally two other people in this room who know exactly what I'm talking about, but I won't mention it. But like, that happened 2 years ago. And because of those 2 years, I have met some of the greatest people, and I have some of the closest friends, and they've helped me through so much. Like, it's crazy. All these nerds I met online. I got like closest friends, and I can talk about anything with, and it's like crazy how I went from being this weird little gay baby on the internet to like friends that I drive to Calgary for because I live in freaking Lethbridge, and like I do all this stuff because of like Homestuck, and it's crazy how the friends I made. And it's just like, I feel so. Yeah.
I'm going to say something now because I didn't forget, I promise.
I can come back to you.
Will you?
Yes, I will
As soon
come
as I
back
put
to
my
you.
hand up, just call on me because I'm
You in the very back there.
I was just wondering when Homestuck is.
Homestuck is the Homestuck group for Calgary, surprisingly. What we are, we hang out, we do meets, we really like dances. If you like dances, we dress up in Homestuck cosplay and we party, and we donate all our extra money to charity. We have a Tumblr tag, Calgary Stuck. We also have a Homestuck group, Calgary Homestuck group on Facebook. That's where we post all our information about our meets. It's where we post all the photos. From
Brody's
the
vibrating.
Even people who
Brody's freaking out.
Tumblr, then we also have Calgary.
Oh yes, the Tumblr that I totally don't forget about all the time.
Tumblr!
CalgaryStuck.tumblr.com. And again, all those places you can find out information. We'll post info about meets, about panels and upcoming cons. People will even just like upload their cosplay, work in progress, stuff like that. And yeah, it's a really great community. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Homestuck is also cool. Like me in my morning. It's like 9.9 out of 10. We're working up the kinks.
It's way better.
But yeah, we also have, sorry, shameless plug here, we also have a tag, a blog, and Facebook page. So yeah.
They're basically the same.
The gist of it is Calgary Stuck is a bunch of nerds, and sometimes we hang out and eat food. And sometimes we do this.
So basically just Homestuck.
Yes, Calgary Stuck is literally Homestuck. That's it for the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay, last year was a really bad year for me. I got into Homestuck last year, but that was after. I had a group of friends that didn't like me, but I didn't know. So basically, they would leave me out of everything, and I would ask people if they wanted to be my partner for like a group project or something, and then they would say they didn't want a partner, and then go with somebody that I know they didn't like. I would walk up to people in the hallways and say hi, and they would just walk faster. I didn't know that they were doing it on purpose, and I had a best friend who really hated seeing me go through this. So she was there through all of it, and then she took me to Otafest. It was our last big friendship thing before she moved all the way to New Brunswick. Oh, and I hope I'm not making anybody really sad here. I didn't know what the hell Homestuck was, and we went to Homestuck Good, Bad, and Grey, which is pretty much what this is. It talks about bad side of the fandom, good side of the fandom, and there was PowerPoints, and then they showed me Cascade, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I read it, and now some of the girls that were ignoring me before, it got worse for a while because I would talk about Homestuck and everybody would be like, shut up, Randy,
it got better because they read it. And now I have friends in my school, which is something that hasn't been happening for a long time. Not to mention I live in a really small town, so if you're a dork, everybody hates you. It's not just like you can go to a different social group that doesn't really exist yet. Everybody knows. So it was really, really hard for me, and then Homestuck.
So, as everybody says, Homestuck does bring people together, and 5 of us, there are 5 of us, we're part of this too. So, my sweet friend Olivia, I met her last year, bad writers, and she came up to me, and we became friends then. She would not shut up. Independent this, oh, she died, oh, what the hell is Homestuck? She's like, you need to read it, and I read it. This is why. And now, so I don't really know the full story, but she's too shy to talk about it. I think Danielle was drawing something where Olivia was, and they came up, and Danielle, no. So Olivia was drawing Carcat at lunch one day, and Danielle came up, and well, that happened, and now they're both nuts. Aw, they're dating each other. So, and then I got up to date. I was like, what do I do now? But, so like I made a lot of, like, I made really good friends through Homestuck, and it's kind of like led me on to a bunch of other things, and like, regrettably, I'm not really as active with fandom, and I haven't really had like a chance to make like a lot of friends, like, who feel like how stuff. But like even like through all the things that like I was able to sort of continue to do, like somewhere deep in my soul, all this kind of like always be a Homestuck. And I guess like maybe I think you guys would feel like that.
Yeah. Okay, so Claire, that's her. Okay, so I was like really, I'm like her best friend, and we met in school, and we wrote those big notes together. And one day she was like, hey, I found this really website, this Homestuck. I was really confused about everything she was saying. So one day I went over to her house, and she just pulled a computer on her lap. She's like, read this. And I was like, what? And she's like, this is Homestuck, read it now. And I was just really, it was the most stupid thing I could ever laid my eyes on. This kid stood in this room. And it was just like, oh, a kid stands in this room. Yeah, I was just really, I hated it at first. I wouldn't have anything to do with it whatsoever. I hate this, why are you showing me this? And then she kept on telling me to do it, and eventually I gave in and I read it. And it was awesome. And I got these people, and I love them.
Alright, we have time for one more story, and then I want to talk some more. So is there anyone that, yeah.
Paradox.
Not directly on this exactly, but a while ago, more than a year now, I met a friend on Tumblr, doing fandom or whatever, and after a while talking, I finally came to Calgary and I were more Vancouver, and we met up and decided to go to picnic stuff there, I think last summer or something like that. Yes. We get a time up from there every day, and the people will leave your costumes and all of them stuff at the moment. And I kind of just thought, okay, I should move here. She's like, yeah, you should move here. So it's like 6 months later that I moved out to fucking Calgary. And yeah, got a Homestuck thing. A lot of friends with it. So lots of friends and things. So.
I guess I'll finish off with some more sappy bullshit. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word, but I don't even know what our panel is rated.
no pants on. But I am really shy. I don't like talking to people. But then, it must have been like 2 years ago at Animathon, where the Homestuck panel needed a Jake. And I was cosplaying Jake. So I was like, okay, well, why the F not? I'll be Jake. And then, I was really nervous because I've never really done acting before. But I had a blast, even though I'm not really much of an actor. And I've never really been on the spot like that. And it turns out that I like being on the spot like that. Which was really surprising to me, because if you talk to me like one-on-one, I'm terrible with people. And Homestuck just really showed me like a side of myself that I didn't know. And then Calgary Stuck happened, and somehow I wound up with this group of Homestucks that I was in charge of, and for some reason people thought I was good at it, so they just keep letting me do it. And then now we have over 300 members, and we have like friend leaders, and we have pal honchos, and we have all these people helping up, and I'm commanding like this army of 300 Homestucks. And it's just incredible to me, because if you had told me 2 years ago that I would be running panels and being in charge of 300 people, I would have laughed at you. And I just have to thank Homestuck for really kind of breaking me out of my shell and letting me do this.